Today, I have a very special guest coming to me from Kelowna, where she runs a business, the beautiful Serenity Tarot, and she does all kinds of readings. And what is super cool is that she does bone throwings called Osteomancy. So we have Calie here today.
Hi, everyone.
So tell me all about yourself. How did you get on this beautiful witchy path that you're on?
It started because I was just like, one day I was like, you know what, I need a tarot deck. So, I went to the store and got like the cheapest one. And, I was just sort of playing around with it. And, it never really grabbed me. Like I do occasional readings and it went okay, but it wasn't like, I'm great at this. And then about 15 years ago, I got a new tarot deck. It was like a fairy deck. It was really nice and gentle, and I just really connected with it. And all of a sudden it was like I could do all these really awesome readings, and I was very spot on, and it was just like clicking. And it just sort of went from there, and I learned all sorts of new things, and information came to me, and I sought out information, and it was just like, it felt right.
That's awesome. Okay, so I have to ask the nosy catty question. What was the deck you didn't connect with?
I don't know, like, if it was anything specific. It was just like one of the basic Rider-Waite decks.
That's interesting. So I never read with a Rider-Waite Smith deck. I've never read with one. I have one now, but that I was never really drawn to that deck either, and I had a hard time connecting to it. That's why I ask. Because it's the one that's like in every store when you start seeking, right?
Exactly. And I've just never loved the imagery, and I've never loved how like rigid it feels. It just feels very constricting to me personally.
Yeah, no, I totally hear that. And now I work in the fairy realm too. So I'm interested in the fairy deck that you connected to. Do you know what deck it is?
It was Doreen Virtue's deck back when she was still on her spiritual path.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the first one that I really clicked with.
She's got some good decks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, her journey is interesting. Okay. And now you also do tea leaves though.
Mm-hmm. I feel like you have to sort of seek out people who do it now. It's not as common in art. But yeah, I just sort of thought, you know what, this is something I'll try my hand at, and maybe it'll work and maybe it won't. And so I don't know that I do it like the traditional way. I just sort of like look at the leaves and read the spiritual meanings that I'm instructed to, bring forward from the symbology. But I don't think I do it the traditional way.
Yeah, it is really a hard art. I've looked for someone who teaches occasionally, and I've had her on here, Paisley Town. She hosts psychic fairs, and she used to have a tea leaf reader that would come in and do tea leaves. And yeah, I think it's a beautiful art. It's something I want to learn. So
yeah, it's definitely something I want to try doing more of. Because I think it's one of those things that really comes with practice.
Yeah. And I think too, like you were saying, like, I don't know what the traditional means of doing it is, but it sounds like personally you're doing a lot of channeling work, like really getting the messages from deeply diving into the leaves.
Yeah, that's sort of, how I find that I do most of my divination is just sort of, I'm being guided to give this message to the person, and maybe it'll resonate with them. Maybe it's a message that's I'm just supposed to say for my own sake, but I just say what I'm instructed to say.
I like that. Because as you know, like I love, love, love tarot. It's my favorite. I include it in all of my readings, but I do a lot of channeling in my readings. Like it is a lot of message work. I find though, I don't know if it's because I'm obsessed with art or what it is, but I just love the decks.
Me too.
So now you reached out to me on Instagram, and I had not heard of Osteomancy. I said that right, right?
Yeah, you said it right.
Tell us all about that because this is super exciting.
So I guess I'd encountered like the word before and never really thought to explore it. And it quite literally came to me in a dream one day. I was like, it was just a message that you got to try your hand at this, and maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but you got to try it. So almost immediately I started looking for like pre-made bone kits. So I can't remember the name of the site where I got my first one, but it was like 15 different objects. And I started reading with it, and it was just like, this was what I was meant to read with. Like, it was just an instant connection. And it's actually like a really old practice. There's different methods depending on where it originated in the world. Like there's an African method that primarily uses shells. There's one from the UK that uses like sheep's not clavicles, sheep's scapulas. But yeah, there's all these different methods. And this is sort of like a combination of all these different methods that you just bring together this set of objects that you're assigning meaning to, and use that as the divination tool.
Now, some of the objects, so it's neat because osteo means bone, right? So it's the idea of throwing the bones, but you're not just using bones, you're using a collection of eclectic objects.
Yeah. People sort of, when you say throwing the bones, people tend to just picture bones, but I've got shells, I've got stones, I've got plant matter, I've got like metal charms, like things I find on the sidewalk. It's just all sorts of things that are smallish and I feel have meaning to them.
So like when you're out in the world, like say you're on a beach or something, do little objects call to you because they want to be in your kit?
Absolutely. Quite early in the process of my learning to read the bones, I went on a trip to Costa Rica, and I spent probably hours walking up and down the beach and being like, oh, this one, oh, this one, oh, this one. It was really like, they just were like, hey, I want to be part of this.
So probably similar to people listening in the earbud coven, probably similar to the way when you're at a metaphysical shop, a certain crystal will call to you, or a certain deck will call to you, or a certain, candle or whatever will call to you. Objects in the wild call to you now.
Yeah, absolutely. That's just, they I feel like particularly with the animal matter, they want to be useful in their death, and they want to be able to help help people on their spiritual journey. And it's just like, I want to have a purpose beyond my life.
Oh, wow. Oh, this is so interesting. Okay, so here's what I think we should do, because this would be super fun, is I want to learn more about this. And then as part of our content, if we could do a reading, and I'll keep the video for that and we can offer that. Are you okay with that?
Absolutely. That sounds awesome.
I'm super excited.
Yeah.
I've been teaching a lot, so I haven't been getting a lot of readings. I've just been
Yeah.
reading a lot. Okay, so tell me more about the idea, because that really resonates with me. The idea that animals in their death, they still want to be of service to us. That's really beautiful. Right? Because they do kind of come to us in so many ways, whether there are the animals we live with, or whether we're out walking and we notice a butterfly or a garter snake or an eagle. Like, animals seem to always be giving messages.
Absolutely. They're like a very powerful messenger, whether they know it or not. For example, I have this really cool piece that I'm pretty sure nobody else will ever have. I used to have a Brittany Spaniel named Ranger, and we'd take him up for walks and one day he got a grass seed lodged in his side, and it ended up causing an abscess, and it had to be surgically removed. But the vet kept the little grass seed for us, and I actually have it somewhere in my kit. And after his death, I was like, you know what? This needs to have a purpose in his death, and it's one of my favorite pieces, actually. There it is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, and do they, like, similar to our tarot cards and things, do they mean the same thing every time they come up, or do they kind of flow a bit differently?
There's meanings that they will have like 90% of the time. And sometimes I'll be giving a reading and I'll be like, you know what? I don't know why it wants to say this, but this is what it's saying this time. So it's very like dependent on the person and the situation they're asking about.
You have a good gift.
Thank
You
you.
really do. This is such a beautiful expression of the way divination works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I really love about reading bones is like with tarot, because you'll have the same cards in your deck, you could go to, 5 different tarot readers and get sort of a vaguely similar reading that's uniquely bent to that reader, but you're never going to find 2 bone readers who have the same kit.
Wow. How many items do you have in your kit at this point, roughly?
Probably 100 or so right now. I think I have a very large one. Like I think most people operate with like 20 or 30, but I just keep finding things that want to be part of it.
And you've been doing this for quite some time, like 15 years, right?
I've only been doing the bone reading for about 4 or 5, actually.
But you've been divinating for 15.
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, like, walk us through for everyone listening. So, people are pretty familiar with like we shuffle our cards, we deal a spread. So, what does it look like when someone sits at your table and gets a
When,
reading?
when someone comes to me, I like to get a sense of their energy. So I'll hold their hands and, feel their energy for a minute or two. And then I'll give them a little worry doll piece, and that represents them in the reading. And when I instruct them that after I've thrown the bones, they can then throw that into the circle as well. But before I throw them, I'll take my kit and I'll blow a stream of air on it so that it's sort of like imbibing it with my life energy. And I'll sort of mix them around and wait for the right combination to come up, and then I'll just throw it on the mat.
Should we do this?
Absolutely.
Okay. Do I ask a question or do you go with just what is needed?
I could do either. So if you have a question, I can try and answer it or just see what they have to say to you.
Okay, I always have a question because I am putting together a new course.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, I'm kind of like, I know what the material is supposed to be. I'm not sure what the container is, like if I'm going to do a 3-month or if it's going to be like a 1 intensive or if it's going to be in person, or like the actual like logistics are still forming. And I feel like it's quite needed right now. Yeah, so just any information about that.
Okay, let's see what they've got to say. Oh, you've got a lot of stuff that comes up here. They really love this question. So I'll take a picture of it and send it to you later so that you can get a clearer picture of what the objects look like in their thrown state. So I'll show you them now. So this is what
Oh, wow.
yeah. So everything that's inside the circle on the mat is something that's directly at play in this situation. So this is like things that are actively happening. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is this little blue bracelet I have here. And this is called an action item. And anything inside the action item is something you can like actively try to work on. The first one that I'm going to talk about here is this little Red Riding Hood figure. And the Red Riding Hood figure speaks to me of the container that you're putting this class, this course in, wrapping it up in a way that is appealing to maybe the beginner, someone who's like not really sure where they are in their spiritual journey, and they're thinking maybe this is something I should do, maybe it's not for me yet. So this is sort of like what you're wrapping it in, how it looks from the outside, and putting it in a way that's appealing to someone who's a little bit trepidatious. I feel like even today we get a lot of messages about tarot and stuff is the devil's work or whatever. We get a lot of that from people who don't really understand it. So I feel like a lot of us have that little voice in our ears. Maybe we shouldn't be doing this. Maybe this will turn off people. Maybe this will make my friends uncomfortable. So this is sort of like, how can I, make this as friendly, as gentle, as as appealing as possible to these people who are still a little unsure. The next item we're going to talk about is it's a little book that opens and closes. And this little book, I think, is quite literally about the wording that you'll use and figuring out like what sort of actual physical material will I be offering with this course? Like, is there a workbook? Is there, an exercise book? Like, is there assignments for people? Like, what kind of physical material will I have involved in this? So these are things that you can sort of think about, you can work on and sort of get them fleshed out. And as you work on those things, you'll start to see some of this other stuff come together. You'll be like, oh, okay, this is part of how it works. This is part of what I should do. And it's just sort of going to click together as you work on it. And the next thing, it's sort of making its way into the action item, but isn't quite there yet. This is a raccoon baculum. And the baculum is actually the penis bone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's surprisingly large for a raccoon, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I didn't know mammals actually had an actual, like, bone in their bone.
Yeah, some of them do. Some of them have evolved out of it. Like their coyotes one is about this big, but the raccoon one is massive for some reason.
Wow.
So this is it. Usually it reads as male energy, and it is reading as male energy, but it's sort of reading more male energy in the form of we view the sun as a masculine energy and the moon as a female energy. Okay. So this is sort of like looking at how can I bring light, how can I shine a light on this? How can I make it, spread the word? How can I get this message out there that this is something I'm offering and this is something I'd like people to be able to take part in? So this is sort of, it's not quite fully realized yet, but you are getting there. And it's just sort of looking at how to spread the word about this as much as possible. Okay. So next we're going to talk about, this is a porcupine quill. And the porcupine quill, this is a very important message specifically for you. It is, as you're working on this, you're going to form a lot of cords of attachment with people. And the more cords of attachment you have, the more you're going to, well, not necessarily definitely, but the more you risk putting yourself at risk of being drained, of being depleted. So making sure you're really taking care of the physical as you work on this spiritual project. And it's an awesome project. It's a very important passion project that the universe really wants to see come to fruition. But it's, always important that we take care of our physical health first.
Okay.
So we've got this little, it's a mosaic tile. And this is one of the items that I picked up in Costa Rica. And this is one of the things that I really liked about my trip in Costa Rica is these bonds that I made. I'm getting the message that even if the whole thing isn't in person, it might be opportune for you to offer, hey, this isn't mandatory, but this is a little meet and greet. Let's get together and we'll talk about our spiritual journeys, because I feel like one of the important things in doing courses like this is making connections. And it's easier to make a connection with somebody to, get to familiar with their energy and to figure out if you click, if you can meet in person. So just like, a little like coffee meet and greet kind of thing might be a really important part of it. So I'm going to talk about these two together because they are sort of interacting. This is a little piece of mummy wrap. And this is a butterfly wing. And this is speaking to me of choose to move forward with this is going to actually be a really awesome method of preserving spiritual knowledge, because as I understand it, a lot of spiritual knowledge is stuff that has been passed down from person to person through verbal storytelling. Some of it's not even written down. And one of the only ways that we can ensure that these practices continue, this knowledge continues, is to share it with others. So this is like hugely, the universe thinks it's like hugely important to make this happen, because this is ensuring that people continue to know this and continue to practice it. Okay. Next we're going to talk about this guy. It's a little hard to see, but this is actually my own umbilical cord stump.
Wow, your mom, that is
yeah,
awesome.
my mom kept it, and I was like, hey, this is kind of cool.
That's a powerful piece of medicine,
isn't it?
Yeah,
it's just like very, very.
Like I've got chills, girl. That's wow.
So this one is, I just love this message. This is like calling on this very sacred connection we have with Mother Earth. And I think it's important that at some point in this practice, you encourage people to maybe meditate in nature, take their shoes off, step in some grass, and just connect with the earth. And I actually think you should encourage people to leave an offering, just as a thank you for the universe sharing its knowledge with them. And offerings, they can be simple, whatever the person is guided to do. But yeah, this is like, it's just, there's so much love in this reading. There's so much love in it. And it's very gentle, and it's just like, it's an energetic hug, honestly. Okay. You've got this is a fox jaw, and it doesn't have any teeth in it. And I think that in this particular aspecting of it, there is space for a limited number of people. At least in the first offering, you should limit the number of people. This is for your own, like the cords of attachment thing, preserving your own energy. But it's also so that you make sure it's manageable. You can just sort of do a test run. And the more you learn from this, the better able you'll be to make it a bigger thing next time and allow it to grow and expand. Okay, we've got this is a buffalo tooth. And this speaks to me of making the content of this course, you can just sort of adding in as much as you can in terms of different sources of knowledge, making sure that you have a wide range of topics. Even if you don't delve too deeply into them, it's just sort of introducing the concept. And then, this is just a weird random message, maybe having a form at the end and saying, what would I like to have learned more about? Just having people give you a little feedback so you can figure out what resonated with people, what didn't, what can I add in, that kind of thing. And okay, little starfish. And this is not reading what it usually does. It's usually a message of sort of regrowth. Oh, okay, I get it. It's just saying, like, if you reach even one person with this is a great success. If you reach even one person, you have done your job. So, I know I feel this when I give readings. Sometimes you'll be reading someone and they're like stone-faced, and you're like, I don't know if I'm hitting things for them. And it sometimes makes you doubt yourself a little bit. And this is to trust that you're not meant to reach everybody who comes across this path. You're not going to get 100% batting average, but you're going to reach the people that you need to reach. And that is the important part to remember.
Chills again, girl. You are good.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so that's what's coming up.
That is so beautiful. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Yeah, that super resonates. I love that. And as you read, like, because I read, like, I know when I know what it feels like when things resonate really well, and when, like, I know the feeling of my guides showing up, and the whole time you're reading, like, it's super resonating. I'm all goosebumpy and getting chills and stuff. So Yeah, that is so helpful. When you're talking about the buffalo
Mhm.
and you're talking about different topics and stuff, I could almost see like the idea of many, many stomachs, like many containers.
Yeah,
And like it's okay not to go deep, but just to have like these are all the things available.
yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Awesome.
That gave me so much clarity.
I'm glad.
I like this method.
Yeah, so that's what's coming up.
That is so beautiful. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Yeah, that super resonates. I love that. And as you read, because I read, like I know when I know what it feels like when things resonate really well and when like I know the feeling of my guides showing up and the
Mhm.
whole time you're reading, like it's super resonating. I'm all goosebumpy and getting chills and stuff. So yeah, that is so helpful. When you're talking about the buffalo
Mhm.
and you're talking about different topics and stuff, I could almost see like the idea of many, many stomachs, like many containers.
Yeah,
And like it's okay not to go deep, but just to have like these are all the things available.
yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Awesome.
That gave me so much clarity.
I'm glad.
I like this method. Do you teach this?
That's actually something I've been thinking about getting into. I have all these items that I used at some point and no longer want to be used, things that I've collected that don't necessarily go in my kit. So I have little items that I'm thinking of offering as starter kits for people. And if they wanted a little lesson, like that's something I'd love to be able to reach people with.
So you have a background in tarot and in reading and tea leaves. So how did you learn the osteomancy? Is it something you feel like was almost like remembering or applying information of divination to another area of it?
It was a little bit of both. I find that I do best reading tarot decks that have symbology in the artwork. So, not necessarily the strict rider waite symbology, but, if there's a butterfly, like that has pretty significant symbolic meaning. So it's sort of like applying reading symbols, but it definitely felt like this is just something that I inherently knew how to do. And it's actually like, I feel like it doesn't even need to be these specific items. Like, I feel like if I was plopped down with, a dozen items or so that people had picked, I feel like I could read them. And it's just like a matter of figuring out what the symbology is and listening to the messages you're being given.
That's beautiful. I think there's a deep message for everyone who does readings in that to just be just trusting themselves and trusting what
Mhm.
comes and just diving into the symbology. I know in a lot of the work we do, we pull on the collective conscience, right? Like everyone knows that pink is about friendship and love, and everyone associates, you know, dogs with loyalty and friendship. Like there's a collective conscience to the symbolism and the stories that we hold.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like for me the vision that I get is every reader contributes in some way to this massive dictionary we have. And it's like everybody can access this dictionary and everybody can contribute to it. And it's just trusting that the work has been done to create this dictionary and the messages you're getting are honest and true and not trying to edit them yourself.
Yeah, the not editing yourself is hard. I think that comes with a lot of practice sitting across the
Mhm.
table with people. And like you said, sometimes you read people and they're just very stoic and stone faced. And it takes a lot of practice, I think, reading with open people who will help development, like sitting around with your besties and just slinging cards and playing.
Absolutely. Like it doesn't have to be, this very structured reading environment. Like you can just play with them. And, the more time you spend playing with your divination matter, the more familiar you get and the more bonded you become with them.
So I want to ask a couple things. Like I found it very interesting. So I had a porcupine quill come up in
Mhm.
my reading, and that has to do with chords.
Mhm.
So tell me about that dictionary. Like how is a quill?
When I first started learning about chords and clearing chords and cutting chords and figuring out which chords are good and which are bad, I was actually covered in them. And the way that I was seeing this vision as it being like a porcupine with all these quills coming out of myself. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting like metaphor for it.
That's beautiful. That is. And I resonate with that because I think a lot of us, when we start diving into this work, we do find that we have a lot of chords.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the starfish, even though it wasn't its typical meaning, it makes sense that starfish are about regrowth because they're one of the animals that can regenerate.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you want to pick a couple more beautiful pieces from your kit and tell us a little bit about their symbology?
Sure. I'll try and pick some of the less common ones. Like this one here is a gallbladder stone. And the gallbladder stone,
Yeah.
I got it off a Canadian site called Skull Store. Yes, it's really cool. And gallbladder stones tend to form when you're indulging too much in like really rich foods and things like that. So it speaks to me of watching what you're putting into your body, not just your physical body, but what you're putting into your emotional body, your spiritual body, and being careful not to indulge in too much junk food, like, you know, not watching all this reality TV, like occasionally watching a documentary or something, and, you know, not letting pop culture and, you know, some of the like TikTok-y kind of readings that maybe aren't necessarily authentic, like not relying on things that don't resonate with you. Because I feel like you know inherently when the messages you're being given by anybody, a reader, anybody in your life, you know when they're right for you and they'll resonate, and or you'll be like, ugh. And it's trusting that sort of instinct. What else we have here? We've got here, this is a little stone. It's called a gastrolith, which is basically a stone that is in a bird's stomach, and they help digest the food because birds don't have teeth. So it helps break down the food. So this is all about, it's sort of like a message of wearing down things gradually, maybe biting off more than you can chew and having to break it down into smaller, more manageable pieces. Sometimes it's like a message you've taken on a big project at work and you have to sort of chunk it down and make it less stressful. Sometimes it's, you know, you've gotten into a relationship that feels a little bit scary, and, you know, weighing whether it's the right thing for you at that given time. So it's just sort of figuring out how you can manage everything on your plate in a way that preserves your physical health and your sanity.
This is so neat. I'm like enthralled by like just listening to you. I'm totally enthralled. This is like a really cool art.
Yeah, thank you. It's very, very cool that, you know, all these different things that you come across in your life, and you know, maybe don't realize how much spiritual power they have until you really start thinking about it. Okay, what does this mean and why?
Well, and I think that's something we've kind of lost in North America.
Mm-hmm.
Like we've lost this idea of carrying medicine, right?
Yeah.
Like of things being sacred and things being important. And it's almost like, and I don't know if you feel this too, like inherently we know that certain things are special, right?
Yes.
Like I found recently I was going through a box and I found little baby spoons, like silver baby spoons. And I think they were my dad's,
Oh.
right? So they're on my altar now because they're special. And of course, no one would ever throw them out. So I think we have this inherent kind of knowing that things are sacred and things hold meaning and they're medicine that to take with us. But we've lost this connection, I feel, in North America with the medicine in our nature and the medicine around us and how they can assist us on a regular basis.
Absolutely. You know, and I think that it's one of the things that we sort of lose as we industrialize and gentrify and things like that. Like the more we close off our green spaces and the less we interact with them, the less opportunity we give ourselves to think and realize that, hey, this is important and we should be, doing more to preserve it and connect with it.
100%.
Any further questions you have about the objects, or?
I don't know, you want to share just one more because I'm all enthralled.
Okay. So I've got this corncob pipe, and it is a real corncob pipe, if you can see the details on there.
Yeah.
And I found this in a thrift shop, and I was like, this probably has like a huge history attached to it. Like, I wonder who, smoked this, and, who possessed it, and, how much history has it seen? And so I love when it comes up in a reading, because it often connects to a very specific person in the person I'm reading. It connects to a specific person in their life. And maybe that person had a pipe, maybe that person just had like a very grandfatherly energy, but they always know who it is. Okay. And I love to, because it often comes up with a specific message for that person. For like, if I were reading myself and it came up, it would represent one of my grandfathers. And he and I were never very close on Earth, but I often get the sense that if it came up in a reading for me, it would mean that he was actually trying to connect with me from the spiritual realm. And that's sort of the message to me, to be more open, to look for these messages from the beyond, and to allow myself to receive them, because we can't always, be in the right headspace to receive these messages. So it's sort of like, okay, I gotta, set some stuff aside, maybe meditate and listen. It's just like a pause button.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you so much for your time.
You're very welcome.
Someone wants a reading from you, what is the best way to reach out and connect with you?
Best way is probably through my Facebook page. I don't know that I've given you the link yet, but I will send that to you.
Okay, and, I'm going to say it out so people can search you.
Yeah, so it's Beautiful Serenity Tarot Reading. Yeah, and that's, I think there's a couple that come up. This one, it should say that it's based out of Kelowna, so that's how you'll know it's the right one. And
do you give in-person readings in Kelowna as well?
I sure do.
Excellent. And any psychic fairs or anything coming up for you that anything else you want to shamelessly plug? Because that's what I'm here for you to do.
I offer readings on my Etsy page, and it's kind of a complicated spelling, so I won't try and say it out loud because it doesn't translate phonetically. But yeah, I offer readings on there. My YouTube channel is Arwen Law Life. It's ARWENLALAITH. I do a monthly energy forecast with my bones, and yeah, you can find me there.
Thank you so much. Everyone, go and follow her, because this is amazing, amazing readings. I'm so grateful for this time I've had with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
We will have the reading you provided for me, so everyone can see all of these beautiful items. We'll have a video up. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I had a great time.
Yay.